Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am in beautiful, lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, as I record this on Sunday, July 12th, in the year 2026. And it's very windy, breezy outside, and we had a little bit of rain today and a little bit of rain yesterday, but it's still mostly El Nino here. And we are going to look at the astrology of this week ahead, and lots going on, lots. But let's first talk about today, which is the Sun-Mercury cazimi. And what is cazimi? It's an astrological term and sort of an ancient astrological term that indicates when two planets are together in the same place at the same time, a conjunction, but they are exact. Okay, so Sun and Mercury are exact today. And I talked about this last week, and I've talked about this through other Mercury retrograde cycles because Mercury retrograde invites itself into the Sun's place, and they conjunct halfway through the retrograde cycle of Mercury. So you figure if Mercury is like 21, 22 days long with the retrograde, it's somewhere around 11, 12 days. It could be, sometimes it's not exactly that, the Sun and Mercury conjunct. And this is because Mercury cannot be too far away from the Sun, and that's when it steps backward into its retrograde. Venus has a similar pattern. Venus will do the same thing. She will do her retrograde when she gets a little too far from the Sun and she needs to be a little closer to the Sun. That's when her retrograde starts. And somewhere in the middle of her retrograde, she experiences a conjunction with the Sun, a cazimi with the Sun. And, something can be conjunct and not exact. So sometimes they can pass by each other and they don't do an exact conjunction. But this is a cazimi, which means it's exact. It's within a few minutes. And we really do pay closer attention to that because the energy of the planet conjuncting the Sun, first of all, it's combust. I mean, combust goes a little further on out by degrees. So, even if you're within 4 degrees, 5 degrees, you're combust. The planet is combust. So this is combust, this is cazimi, this is hot because it's in the Sun. And that makes something really powerful happen. I think it turns up the volume on whatever we're experiencing with that planet, whether it's Mercury or Venus or whatever planet comes to conjunct the Sun. And by the way, when Mars comes through, Mars, it's not about the conjunction, it's about the opposition. So Mars does the opposition to the Sun, and that is when it gets to the midpoint of its retrograde cycle. But getting back to Mercury, this is a hot day as far as Mercury and the Sun are concerned because the fire of the Sun heats up Mercury, and it is a very deep and profound experience of words and communication and thoughts. Now, I felt today that I had to keep writing and rewriting things. I'm getting ready to teach. I'm writing my blog. I had to really tune in, and maybe this wasn't the best day to do these things, but it still needed to be done, right? So we have to move forward despite what Mercury's doing. And so I really felt like I had to edit and re-edit and connect and reconnect and get my thoughts clear and recognize when it might be going off track or something. So this is a very strong experience of Sun Mercury. And it's good to be very self-aware in your dealings with communications while you're doing this. So your experience of working with Mercury's energy, meaning writing, communicating, thinking, talking, anything, this is a very powerful day to do that. And I did some magic earlier with Monica, and so some of it was about communication for her. And so we did some candle magic and stuff, and that really we had to define and we had to get clear on what the intention was. And the more clear you are on your intention when you are using this Mercury Sun cazimi, the better off you're going to be. You don't want to be having some sort of Mercury combust experience in your writing, speaking, relationship communication dynamics goes combust. So this is something really important. And, you know, it's been leading up to this, and then it will start to really get lesser and lesser as today goes on and into tomorrow. But we have other things going on that are very important. And I want to talk about this relationship of the outer planets because this is a very significant experience that's really going to start this week. And I know, like, the 21st and the 24th, and these are special days, but these planets are getting aligned now. And so what is this exactly? I've talked about it over the last bunch of weeks, maybe the last month. And imagine that the planets, all three outer planets, that would be Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, are all in what is being called a basket, a canasta in Spanish. So you have Pluto at 4 degrees Aquarius. And then 2 signs away at 4 degrees in Aries, you have Neptune. And then 2 signs away at 4 degrees, you have Uranus in Gemini. And Uranus and Pluto on the outer edge of these are in what we call a trine. And Uranus is trining Pluto, but Uranus is also sextiling Neptune in the middle of all of this in Aries. And Neptune is sextiling Pluto. So it's 2 sextiles and a trine. And they are in a configuration that is being called Barbault's basket, and it refers to a French astrologer from the 20th century whose name is Andre Barbault, and he recognized this pattern, and he looked at cycles. He was very good with mundane astrology, and I like mundane astrology, and he was looking at the collective cycles of the outer planets. That was his expertise. And this pattern came to his attention. He looked far, far, far in advance many years ago at this pattern and said this was going to be a particularly powerful, transformative time because of the arrangement of these planets. Now, it is definitely those 3 planets, and they are going to make their exact relationships this week. Some of them are. And so while we're paying attention to that, there's also Jupiter, who is going to be going to 4 degrees opposite Pluto because Jupiter is now in Leo. And so Jupiter is 2 signs away from Uranus in Gemini. So that's a sextile that Jupiter is making to Uranus. The faster moving planet makes the aspect. So with Jupiter, 2 signs away from Uranus, which is 2 signs away from Neptune, which is 2 signs away from Pluto, we have this nice little arrangement, this little basket. And Jupiter is opposite Pluto, so this is all nice and neat. And everybody is in this little cup, right? And there's nothing really going on at the top at the moment, okay? It's just, think of it as this sort of cup-like structure, bowl, basket, okay? And so what we're looking at right now is the 4 of these planets talking to one another very intensely. It's not like, Jupiter's kind of sort of opposite Pluto. Jupiter's going opposite Pluto. It's 2 degrees and 46 minutes as I speak. And it's going to go to 4 degrees, not right now, it'll be about the 21st. And that's when everything gets really tight and clear. And so when we experience this energy, Jupiter is the faster moving planet. The outer planets do talk to each other frequently, like all of the 20th century, almost all of the 20th century. Neptune and Pluto were in sextile. They were in this every other sign, 2 signs away from each other, degree aspect to one another. So, for example, I am born with, and if you're born with the 20th century, I'm born with Pluto at 13 degrees of Virgo and Neptune at 17 degrees of Scorpio. And so they're like 4 degrees apart. That's a sextile. And Uranus, my Uranus, is 9 degrees of Virgo. Now that's wide to Neptune. But later on in the decade in which I was born, that Uranus moved closer. And then everybody was sort of in this sextile between Neptune, Uranus and Pluto conjunct, and Neptune. So that was one configuration, and things changed during that time. Things changed. So this is different because Uranus and Pluto back then they're conjunct, and sometimes, when you have Sun, Venus, it's not always a hard aspect, but when you have Uranus and Pluto, that's a hard aspect. These are not in a hard aspect. Okay, this is soft and flowing. The only hardness is Jupiter opposite Pluto. And so there needs to be a little bit of an edge on this, right? And what this French astrologer, Andre Barbault, talked about is that this was a big consciousness raising experience. And I do believe that it is that, but I'm going to get up in the morning and still feed my cat, right? So on some level, flying saucers are not going to appear in our backyards tomorrow. I'm still going to get up and feed my cat. You are still going to get up and do your chores and go to work, and we're all going to do what we need to do. And it may not look terribly different, but this is about feeling. This isn't not about physical appearance so much. It's about feeling a shift inside oneself. And it is about encouraging the use of this energy. Remember, sextiles and trines need to be used. They are not squares, okay? Squares force us into decisions. They force us to stop behaving a certain way. Conjunctions come on top of us and they force us to deal with that energy, right? The only tension here is Jupiter opposite Pluto, which is, pretty intense. But Jupiter is in trine to Neptune and Aries. So that's smooth. So they're all supporting one another, right? So there's this sort of overlapping two trines and lots of sextiles, and this is all very smooth. And it is not something that we're going to be slapped upside the head and all of a sudden the aliens are landing and it's going to be like an episode of Doctor Who. This is really something that we have to sit with, intuit, and use the energy for. So if you're launching projects, well, it's Mercury retrograde, and you're probably saying, it's Mercury retrograde, I'm not going to launch anything now. It's a reflective time. It's a reflection of our lives and what's happening for us and what we want to set forth. It's about setting intention. And so this isn't so obvious in the 3D material world. This is about taking the time with this, setting intention, and getting the ball rolling and moving things through this time period. And, when things get set up like this, they happen and then they move on. Jupiter's going to move quicker than all of these planets. And then, these planets are going to sextile each other and come back during the retrograde and do it again and that kind of stuff. And it won't ever be like this again because Jupiter's going to go to 4 degrees and not come back to 4 degrees Leo again. Okay? This is something very interesting and profound because when these things get set up, the energy starts to flow, the energy starts to move, and we notice the changes in our lives later. So let me use 2020 as an example. Saturn and Pluto were in touch and pretty much conjunct one another in 2019, okay? I was watching them. I knew the conjunction was going to happen. If you listened to my podcast back then, you caught me talking about the occultation of the moon making an occultation over Saturn and Pluto. Okay, it would slide over them once a month when it went into Capricorn, and so something was being blocked. But what happened then is that Saturn and Pluto did not become exact with each other until January of 2020. Now, it was, for all intents and purposes, they were conjunct in 2019, which, what I always say, you have a baby in like July 2019, you got Saturn and Pluto conjunct. Oh, the baby's got Saturn and Pluto. They're a Saturn Pluto kid. Okay, but when that conjunction happened, nothing happened. There was an eclipse. I saw a UFO. This was like big for me. And I'm like, maybe that's what Saturn and Pluto were going to be for me. And then Jupiter got close to them. And then all of a sudden things started happening. Saturn moved on and went into Aquarius. But everything started to happen a couple months later with COVID. And so we did not see it the weekend of, which means this week, what I'm about to tell you, you're probably not going to exactly see what the sextile of Uranus and Neptune is going to be on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so that means you're going to say, Deb, that was nothing. Well, wait a few months. We've got to see We have to see where they set the ball rolling. That's what these aspects do. Just because they're happening at the same time, they're not inner planets. This is not, Venus and Mars like, wow, that was tough, or that was a little ornery in my relationships and my friendships and stuff, a little ornery. Mars and Venus are together. It's, a little hot-blooded and a little bit of brain cells busting. And no, these are outer planets. We don't see them in the 3D world without a telescope. They can't be seen with the naked eye. Therefore, what they're doing and how they're communicating with each other in this universe where we are all connected, and archetypally as they are, experiencing this relationship to one another, I would say that this is something that is going to affect us on a very deep level, consciousness raising, but we are not seeing it tangibly. Like I said, you're going to get up and take your dog for a walk, right? You're going to feed your cat. You're going to go to work. You're going to feed your kids. You're going to send them off to summer camp. This is something profound and deeply embedded in the collective unconscious. So on Wednesday at 4:32 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have Uranus in Gemini sextile Neptune in Aries. And the placements of these two planets, nobody's on Earth has lived through this. Neptune is in Aries. Yes, there are people who have Uranus in Gemini because they were born during, the end of World War II or during World War II or before World War II, right before. So there's people with Uranus in Gemini, but nobody's got Neptune in Aries because that didn't happen for 168 years, okay? So when you've got these two talking to each other, none of us on Earth know what that is. And so Uranus is the planet of innovation, genius, brilliance, lightning bolts, information at warp speed in Gemini. And Neptune is the planet of vision qualities, visionary experiences. It's also the experience of, delusion, illusion, creativity, spirituality, empathy, deep empathy. And so something really profound is happening in the collective unconscious. Neptune is like the ocean. It's the water. Uranus is like, the lightning. Pluto is like the volcano. And so what we're going to then see later in the week is that Uranus, after it gets finished exactly sextiling Neptune on Wednesday the 15th at 4:32 p.m. Eastern Time, on Saturday the 18th, Uranus is going to trine Pluto at 12:45 a.m. Eastern Time, which for me is 10:45 p.m. Friday night. Well, I have a Uranus-Pluto conjunction, and the people of my generation have that conjunction. And I went through something during the square. Well, that was when I discovered Costa Rica. I mean, a lot happened because the square went on for a long time. But this is another thing. This is a trine. And so if you're born in the same decade I'm born, and you have that Uranus-Pluto conjunction, you know who you are, then you are probably going to experience something profound. And I don't mean, necessarily material world. It's going to probably be something very deep in your consciousness that shifts. And it may have a lot to do with what was going on from like 2012 through 2016. Okay, when they were squaring each other for the first time since they conjunct. And that experience is profound. That experience is profound. What we're looking at is Uranus is coming in and talking to both of these outer planets exactly in the same week. It's not a month later. Oh yeah, they're all around 4 degrees. They are exact. The tighter the aspect, the tighter the experience, the more profound the experience, the incredible stuff that's going to be available to us. If you don't meditate, I suggest you either go take a class this week or turn on a meditation CD or video on YouTube or something that you've got that's going to get you through a meditation, because this, you could see some wild stuff this week. I always think of Uranus as like psychedelic with Neptune, with Pluto. This is profound stuff. So these planets are already aligning, and so what we're going to also see over these next few days is that Venus, starting tomorrow, is involved in this. So that's relationships, that's money, that's profound creativity. An unexpected creativity as Venus squares Uranus. So maybe you'll have a genius, brilliant idea for your business, for your life, for redecorating your house. It's Venus. So Venus in Virgo will square Uranus in Gemini at 10:27 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. And then right after that at 12:45 p.m., a couple hours later, she's going to make an inconjunct to Neptune, and then at 4:52 p.m. an inconjunct to Pluto, which means that she's making that needling aspect I talk about. It's a 150-degree aspect. This means that Venus is going to square Uranus, talk to the other two outer planets. She's talking to all three planets tomorrow, and she is in what we call a yod with Neptune and Pluto, and she is in the finger of God. That could be a real turning point for a lot of people in these next days. Profound. So Venus comes in, she talks to Uranus earlier in the day, and she has this wild electric idea, and she comes in and then has this Y-shaped aspect with Neptune and Pluto tomorrow afternoon. This is profound. This is a profound dance. Venus is dancing in this realm, in this Barbault's basket. And she's talking to the outer planets, all of them, tomorrow. And she's already talked to Jupiter because she's further along than her relationship to the other outer planets. She's already had conversation with Jupiter, and she's now having this conversation with the outer planets. So this is significant, right? She's already had a semi-sextile to Jupiter, but they don't talk about that too much, but it's important. There's some friction in relationships. It's a semi-sextile. Maybe there's a little overindulgence with Venus and Jupiter. And so here we go, where Venus comes in and has these dynamics tomorrow that are profound and that we're not going to see again till who the heck knows. So these planets are all talking to one another already. Venus is already getting involved with them, and then we're going to see that Jupiter is now getting closer and closer, and then the moon enters Leo on Tuesday afternoon. There is a new moon. There is a new moon in Cancer, but that's later in the sign. It's 21 degrees, so it's not in connection with this basket. The moon goes into Leo, and then it's going to start conjuncting Jupiter at 11:49 p.m. Tuesday night, Eastern Time, and then dance with all the outer planets in the wee hours, Eastern Time, of Wednesday morning. So this is a profound week. This is a very important week, okay? So we want to really pay attention, have lots of self-awareness, do a meditation, do things that are going to help us move forward with our creative processes and our relationships and the dynamics we have with people in our lives. Because it's Venus, it's a social planet. Jupiter's a social planet. And the moon and Jupiter are going to get together. And that means while Jupiter is getting closer to opposing Pluto, which it's not going to exactly do this week, the moon comes in and opposes Pluto. So it's going to, like I said, hit Jupiter and then eventually dance with the outer planets. This is highly significant, okay? So this is something we really want to be aware of, paying attention to, and notice the energy. You might be exhausted after all this. Sometimes this just brings a lot of events. When it's the moon, it's day-to-day events. When it's Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, it's deeper. So the moon is provoking the deeper collective unconscious events, and it is in this relationship with Jupiter, and Venus is in this relationship with the outer planet. So this, to me, says we have a lot going on this week. It may feel heavy. Whenever you go through something and you're touching the divine and you're touching your subconscious, like when I do my breathwork sessions with my friend Juana, when I do my breathwork sessions, I'm touching things in my subconscious that are coming out that I didn't expect. I'm going in with one intention. I went in with the intention 2 weeks ago of, making peace with the past, and it was stuff that I did not expect. Which part of my past? There's a lot of years of past here. This was not what I expected. So I was also kind of directing it towards something else, and that wasn't important, apparently, according to my consciousness. It wanted something different. So, okay. So, this is something really truthfully powerful this week. And don't deny it. Like, Neptune, things kind of float by, but with Uranus provoking that planet and Pluto this week, I doubt it's going to be quiet. There may be big events in the world, right? Maybe big events in the world. We may see those things. Now, because Venus is in Virgo, and then she's going to do this little dance with the outer planets tomorrow, and then she's going to move on, and then we've got the moon doing a dance with the outer planets. Eventually, the moon is going to go into Virgo, just like Venus. And that will be Thursday at 8:07 p.m. The moon will go into Virgo, Eastern Time. And then the moon on Friday will dance with the outer planets just the same way Venus did on Monday. So she's going to do her thing. The lunar goddess, she'll trine that Chiron like Venus did last week. Then she'll make her in conjunct to Neptune and Pluto and have a yod with Neptune and Pluto and have a square to Uranus, just like she did, except this is all happening within a few minutes because the moon moves very quickly. So the moon will do her in conjunct with Neptune at 3:37 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Then a few minutes later at 3:44 a.m. she'll square Uranus, and then she'll do an in conjunct to Pluto at 3:50 a.m. So these are all like 5-6 minutes apart. Well, that's incredible, right? And then she'll conjunct Venus at 11:06 a.m. and you'll go have a nice breakfast. And then she'll go square Mars later in the day, in the evening. And then that's it. She's going to do her other things. But all of this in the middle of the night. Take your chamomile lavender tea Friday night because it's going to be a rocky night's sleep, I think. It's just profound, powerful, and not letting up anytime soon. The moon is going to touch these planets everywhere she goes. So she does it with Leo, she does it with Virgo, different aspects depending on where she is in the zodiac. And then she's going to go into Libra on the 19th, and I have my little note, my sticky note here on my desk talking about how, the moon will get to 4 degrees of Libra and hit all that stuff right away. She's going to oppose Neptune. She's going to make other relationships to Jupiter, to Pluto, and Uranus. She's going to be in an air sign when she's in Libra next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And on Sunday, she's going to really make that dynamic of a grand trine with Uranus and Pluto. Wow. So this is a stunning week. This is a stunning week, and this is an alignment that we cannot deny. When we get into next week, there's going to be more profound stuff. Jupiter's going to trine Neptune, and then it's going to be opposing Pluto. Jupiter's going to get into the exactitude of the 4-degree relationship that these other planets are involved with. And so I encourage you to use this energy. Sit down with yourself. Go deep with your creativity, deep with your consciousness, deep with your sensitivity, your thoughts, the things you wish to develop and create, and heal. Heal in your life. What is it that you want to heal? That's deeply creative too. Wow, this is a stellar week. In other aspects, there will be a new moon on Tuesday the 14th at 21 degrees, 59 minutes, 22 degrees of the cardinal signs of Cancer, okay? And so that is the cardinal axis as well, the world axis as well, and it also puts us at 6 degrees of the mutable signs that it's affecting by semi-square. So if you've got something at 6 degrees, Sag or Gemini, Pisces, or Virgo, and it should really be 6 degrees. It shouldn't be like 10. Then you're probably going to feel this. So that's one thing. 21 degrees, almost 22 degrees Cancer. And so that's a very profound relationship to the cardinal axis, and it's a point there. So I expect things to happen this week in the world. We're going to hear things. We're going to see what's happening. Some profound revelations. When consciousness expands, things leave. People leave. Situations stop. We have something new happening, and so we have to say goodbye to the old. And so it's important to recognize what you need to surrender to, what you need to let go of, what you need to release as the past, gain wisdom from your past, and don't take it with you into the future. This is a time of great heart opening because Jupiter is in Leo, the sign of the heart. And so if you're going to approach something new now, it's coming from your heart, not from ideology, not from your brain, not from analysis. It's coming from your heart. And so we have to go into our hearts right now to decide what seeds we're planting under the Cancerian new moon, which is happening right with all of these planets aligning in this fantastic combination of smooth and beautiful and opening relationships to one another, these planets to one another. And so I invite you to look at what type of beautiful, blooming future you want to plant seeds for now as we experience this phenomenal relationship between these planets. Who could you become next? What is the next level of your life, of your becoming? What does that look like? What would you love to see bloom in your life? What seeds do you want to plant now? So sit down, set intention, light a candle, spend time with it, open your heart. And Jupiter in Leo is all about opening the heart. And we have this for the next 13 months. So let's experience an open heart, especially as we come through this phenomenal week of planetary relationships. On Tuesday, the 14th, this Tuesday, Dr. Joe Dispenza is having a brand new live stream that you can join. It's only $59. You could go to his website, drjoedispenza.com, and it is called Entangled. And he'll give a lecture, and this will be streamed from his retreat that he's doing. He'll give a lecture and a meditation. And I have attended these events before, actually back in April. He did one about kaleidoscope, and it was really fantastic. So I highly recommend it. It's a new lesson and a meditation. It's at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and if you can't make it, then what you do is you just sign up for it, and then you get access to it the whole following weekend of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay, so the 17th through the following Monday, you can watch it as many times as you want, and it's on the topic of entanglement and quantum entanglement and how two particles can become so connected that they behave as one system, even when separated by vast distances. And so this is what he's going to describe, he's going to teach, he's going to explain, and then he's going to do a meditation relative to that. So I think this is really exciting, and I would highly recommend people looking into this, joining it. It's only $59. You get to watch it multiple times if you want to. I'm going to go to it and then continue to watch it over the weekend, next weekend. So yeah, I think this is a wonderful experience and perfect for this week to understand the nature of how we are all connected. And quantum entanglement is something I've studied for a number of years, also because of my New Vision system, and that really gets into a quantum entanglement when you're working with different aspects of the field, of the quantum field, and any sort of holographic pattern in the field. So I also had to learn about the quantum model of reality in my chemistry studies. So quantum entanglement's part of that, the old quantum mechanics models that I studied back then. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and I highly recommend it. So, and if you are interested in finding out where these beautiful patterns are opening in your astrological chart and what areas of your life they are talking to, well, then I highly recommend you come to me for a session and we can discuss where this is all landing so that you can take advantage of this energy. And to do that, to have a session with me, you just go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online, and set up a session for yourself. And if you would like to have a Reiki session while all of this is going on, well, that could be really profound, and I highly recommend that. So you can also book that on my website when you click book online. I'll be on Instagram this week talking a lot about this. It is The Golden Astrologer on Instagram, so you can follow me there. Have a beautiful week. Have a successful week. Have an intentional week. These aspects are going to go on for a number of weeks, for the next couple of weeks of this month. I thank you so much for listening. Many blessings to all of you. Much gratitude for listening, and have an incredible experience. Maybe you want to get together with your friends and do a group meditation, something like that. Could be really fun. So thank you for listening. Be blessed, be happy, be joyous, be intentional. Great gratitude, many blessings. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the internet.